Hey everybody, what's up? Long time no see. I have a cold, if you couldn't tell. I also have a forehead because all of my hair got chopped off. Yeah, I hope you're all doing well. Sorry, I've been having a quarter life crisis. Even though I'm sick, I decided to film this video because I'm a man, and that's what a man would do. He would man up, alright? Maybe grow a pair. Act like a man, and in some cases have a surgeon make you a pair. Yeah, so I saw this video. It's called Trans versus Conservative Men. Is Masculinity Disappearing in America? And it's a video by Jubilee. I love these videos. I love their channel because I like watching people argue, especially stupid people. So this video is 45 minutes long, but we're gonna cut a bunch of that down because I just want to see what they say about trans people. And yeah, I've not watched this. I wanted to react to it raw with you, so let's see what happens.
Middle ground is a social experiment that brings humans with opposing beliefs together. These discussions may contain viewpoints that are the result of misinformation. Remember to seek out experts and to be critical of your own biases while forming an opinion. Please see the humanity in each participant, and as always, we encourage empathy.
Disclaimer. We know that there are dumbasses in this video who are gonna say some stupid shit. Just take it with a grain of salt. I should have wrote that.
Step forward if you agree with the prompt. Masculinity is disappearing in America.
I think that masculinity is disappearing. I think that it's a concerted effort to emasculate men. I think that some people feel threatened by masculinity and the typical way that men carry themselves, leading families and different things like that. So I think that there's an effort to mitigate strong men in America.
See, this is where this guy is already wrong. We're already like a minute into the video. It's like people aren't trying to force you to not be masculine. People are saying that you can also be a man and you don't have to be the most masculine man in the world.
There's a few different ways to think about masculinity, but just looking at kind of the definition of the term 50 years ago, you had people like John Wayne, you had Martin Luther King, you had Sean Connery. You think of like masculine features as in beards, hairy chests, big muscles, think stoic, being brave, being rugged, being a provider. Today you have, people like Harry Styles and Timothy Chalamet. You have people that are completely contrary to what we were looking at back then, and those values of those masculine characteristics are completely devalued.
We have people like Harry Styles and Timothy Chalamet. What did Timothy Chalamet do that wasn't masculine? Timothy Chalamet is just being an actor.
I do believe that masculinity is going downhill, especially if you look at the testosterone levels. Now the testosterone levels for guys is going down compared to generations before us. So yeah, I agree.
Hold on a second. Wearing like feminine or being feminine wouldn't drop your testosterone levels. It's probably the environment or like the food that people are consuming or something along those lines. Like putting on a dress isn't gonna make your testosterone level drop by 5.
Hi, I'm Gilbert. I'm 24 years old and I'm a conservative man. With my beliefs and having a trans man as my friend, we don't really talk about politics. Someone being trans doesn't make me like them any less of a person. As far as pronouns, when referring to my friend, I don't really use the pronouns that my friend would want. I just say my friend or I say their name, just because I feel like I'm giving into the narrative that men can be women and women can be men if I use the pronouns that they want.
Yeah, I mean, that's respectable. Like, I absolutely love water. Oh, that's fucking disgusting. If I had a friend like Gilbert, I would look him dead in the eyes and say, how are you not going to refer to me as he, him, when my voice is deeper than yours? And I'm the one with the man-made hormones running through my body.
A lot of times when you guys spoke about masculinity, you associate it with men being manly, but I think more women are embracing their masculinity. Masculinity is still there. I mean, just other genders are using it. Being courageous, being powerful, more women are standing in their power, which is again associated with masculine, but it's not specific to just men. Women are no longer submissive, they're dominant. Women don't need men, and I think that most of America is realizing that anyone can be powerful on their own.
I believe that the masculine traits are inherently in men and men have to take a position. You made a really good point by saying women are now becoming more masculine. They feel as if they don't need men, which I think is the problem here. I think that the way we've been designed by God, in my opinion.
No, as soon as you bring religion into any argument like this, I feel like it is totally invalid. Like, regardless of whether or not you're a religious person, that should not be used in a discussion to prove anything ever. When you're saying that we have to be a specific way, no, we don't. Like, that's just because someone created it and everybody wanted to go with it. Like, people are trying to break out of this bubble that was essentially created by the people in the past. Because not everybody wants to live like this anymore. People want to live freely. They want to be happy.
There is a right and wrong way to be a man.
I think that when I originally heard the question being asked, I didn't agree with it, but Men are not abusive individuals. Men are not to be cowards. Men are to lead their families. And men who do not display that, I don't believe that they are men, in my opinion.
Being a man and masculinity, those are two different things. And I believe that we can redefine whatever that means to anybody by including other types of men or other types of masculinity. I myself am a father, I have a child. Some people would disagree with me being a father because I am transgender. But that being said, I present to the world as male, my child sees me as a man.
There's proper ways to be vulnerable, right? You don't have to break down in front of your family and cry. It's okay to suffer in silence as well. Strong men, I believe, exude the qualities that you guys are referring to. I think the problem is overcorrection, right? Some people believe that men need to cry and lay on the ground and be feminine like women.
What? You're a woman. You cry on the floor? You fucking woman. I mean, if we're going by this logic, I've never cried on the floor. So I guess I really truly am a man.
I have male privilege.
Oh, sit over here.
I've lived both lives, and I can tell you firsthand that it does exist. I am taken much more seriously in my career since I've transitioned as a man. Prior to transitioning, I would work just as hard, if not harder, for the same position and not be considered. The minute that I transition, I am immediately taken more seriously. I can give you an example. Obviously with COVID, there's like the mask mandate, right? So I have to tell customers all the time, it needs to be above your nose, right? I do that all day. My manager who's above me, who is a woman, will have to go to them, tell them they give her a fight. But the minute I just look in their direction, it's up. It doesn't seem like a privilege, but it is, because now my manager has to work 3 times harder for something that's so simple.
Very interesting, because I feel like trans men are gonna know the most about this, because if you've lived in society and everyone has viewed you as a girl or a woman for, let's say, 25 years, and then you transition and 5 years down the line you're 30, you're gonna notice the differences.
I think the word privilege is the thing that turns a lot of people off with this conversation. But that being said, again, myself living my life as a female, pretty much half my life, and then now half my life as a man, there is no way I could not be honest about the fact that my life has changed drastically. Also being a white man, that's also a conversation a lot of people don't want to have. But I have privilege of being white and privilege also of being a man now. I can walk into any room and command that room in a heartbeat because people just do that with men. And I think the thing is that biological men are born into that space, so they'll never ever see it. Why do we now, as women who have become men, get to have this thing? It's 100% because we are men. We look like men. Nobody would ever know. No one would ever know that we used to be women. So it's actually a real lived experience.
Yeah, that's a super interesting concept to think about, because most of the trans men went and they explained why. And it's funny because, they might have lived those experiences. If you lived as a woman for 25 years and then you transition into a man, you're obviously going to notice things that are different in society and the way that you're treated. So
I agree with a lot of what you all are saying as far as transitioning. But as a black man, privilege looks way different for me, because if I'm walking down the street, then I'm seen as a threat by police, by women, by anybody else. Being seen as a man is where my privilege stops and where everything else begins. So I don't see it as privilege.
Okay, I got a lot to say about this topic here. First of all, we have to be transparent and honest with each other. I think that not everybody on this side presents 100% like a man. Like if I saw you in the streets, I wouldn't think you were a man.
Man, if he said that shit to me, I would do absolutely nothing about it. But that was so fucking unnecessary. If I look at you, I don't see a man either. I see a giant dumbass.
Have it really hard in this world, and they've always had it hard in this world. The wars have been fought by men. They've died in the hundreds of thousands. Men commit suicide more. Men work more the dangerous jobs. If somebody broke in this place right now, who are they gonna expect to defend everybody in here? It's gonna be the men. If your family fails, they're not looking at your wife. They're not, they're looking at the man.
Why do you think that though? Because there's so much that gets pushed onto men, and then you're taught to hide it and to man up. Maybe that has something to do with the statistics. I don't know.
The difference between you and us is we see it, because we've lived it. You have not. So it's easy to speak and be like, well, it doesn't exist. But well, how would you know?
Well, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I think everybody has certain privileges, but what I think the question here is what defines male privilege over women? Because women have privileges too. Right. So is there a graph that you guys are calculating to make men have more than women, or what?
The privilege is not acknowledging what you have that comes so easy.
So do you think that your fear, because you live both sides,
Right.
do you think your fear is something that you have in your mind, or you think it's a
No.
reality? Because,
No.
no, let me say this, you never really changed as a person. You're the same person
Right,
that you
exactly.
were. So you have the same physical capabilities that you did
No.
when you were a woman.
No.
You
My,
don't?
no, my
This is the epitome of uneducated, because as soon as you take hormones, so much shit changes. I can't believe how much stronger I am after testosterone. It's insane. Is that not like a basic piece of information? If you think of someone injecting testosterone, what do you think happens?
strength is entirely different after
Well,
taking
what
hormones.
percentage would you say?
More than 100%. I
Okay,
weighed
so, but
like
you're still
100 pounds, now I weigh like 133.
you're still not probably as strong as me.
But it's not about strength. It's that
Or-
women are targeted. Men are not targeted. I mean, maybe sometimes. I'm not saying it's never going to happen.
They're targeted by other men. Most of the homicides
But women
occur
are
in this
targeted
country are
by other
homicides.
men.
We're just gonna let that one be. I don't really have anything else to say about that, but this next question is gonna be interesting.
Biology determines gender.
So, sex and gender, people try to argue that they're different, but sex and gender actually go hand to hand. And our biology, being a man, comes down to every fiber within our body. So whether that be DNA, chromosomes, testosterone levels, bone density, there's a whole bunch of different factors that go into it, and it all has to do with biology.
So biology, I 100% believe in biology. Today we talk about biology being a social construct. I disagree with that.
All right, Buck, which 5 people on Twitter are you referring to? Because nobody says that. I think you're mixing that up with gender as a social construct. That's what many people say.
I was born biologically female. I always acknowledge that, and today I live as a male. Now that being said, sex and gender, they are trying to separate those things. Gender can be, I've chosen my gender. As you see, nobody would, I think, probably understand that I used to be a female. Now many people do, like you just said, believe that sex and gender are one thing and you can never change those. I'm not trying to change anything. I'm trying to show the world that this is how I feel by presenting the outside. But I think denying biology is where we get into a lot of problems.
I feel like this is such a straw man argument that a lot of people like to use, because I really just don't think or see trans people denying biology. We are so aware of our biology. We know. That's why we are trans. That is the simplest terms that I can put it in.
If you want to be, seen as a man, then like,
Right on.
who are you to? I don't care. I mean, you do you, whatever makes you happy. But I think like it becomes a slippery slope. It's like, how are we going to deny basic human facts? Like, there's two
I think that
genders.
causes problems, and it causes problems for me.
Yeah.
Because the minute I start denying your biology, now you feel attacked by me. Right. And I don't want you to feel attacked by me. I never want you to feel, I want to be a part of, if that makes sense. You don't have to agree with my choice of how I live my life, but all I ask for is respect.
What do you have on your driver license and your birth certificate?
Right,
Did you
great,
change it to
great.
male, or did you change it to?
So that being said, I transitioned to live as a man 29 years ago.
Gilbert really thought he had him on that one too. That shit is so fucking funny. Dude, that's one of the first things you can change.
So that was way before you see any of this stuff. And I had to acknowledge my biology, right? That being said, my license, I've traveled the world. It has to say male. Can you imagine if I showed up at the airport, they're like, female? Dude, there's something going on here. But I actually got my birth certificate changed to male. I was the first person to do that here in Los Angeles. But that being said, I kind of think that it might have been a mistake to do that now, looking forward today, because I never thought we would be having this conversation.
I'm glad you said that, because I love that people can express themselves. We live in America. It doesn't matter what I believe, what my religion is. I love that people can live their best life. I would never, ever in my life protest or try to go against a person who wants to identify. The problem is when you begin to try to change language and you begin to try to change reality, and then therefore it changes on the children, and all of that becomes...
No. So the thing is, okay, first of all, we're not trying to change language. Trans man, trans woman, those words have been around forever. To pretend like you don't understand pronouns, we learned that in elementary school. I don't even know. To be against change is totally unproductive. We are constantly changing all the time, especially language. Like, we don't speak like Edgar Allan Poe anymore.
So I love this question. With trans folks, biology does change. Our bone density does change. Our muscle structure does change. Our testosterone levels do change. So biologically, we do change. Anatomically, now that's where surgeries come into play. So when we're talking about biology and gender, that can't be changed. Our biology absolutely and concretely changes.
Not the DNA.
But our
DNA does not change.
Yeah, DNA is not going to change for anyone.
So you acknowledge there's a biological difference between males and females, because some people on the other side would say there's no difference. Like a female, like I could look like a girl, not having testosterone, but I'm still a male.
Some people are male, some people are female, chromosomally. But when we start to take testosterone, our bodies do biologically change.
But what about trans men who don't take testosterone?
Then their bodies don't biologically change.
That means then they're biologically still female, right?
Well, and gender in itself is something we get to choose. Okay,
That's right.
Just like you said.
Well, in
right?
your life, you get to choose. Not
That's
you don't
right.
get to choose it for the world, but you get to choose.
I
your
get to
life.
choose my gender because I've been on testosterone for 10 years. Okay, going on 11 years.
But there's some anatomy that will never change.
That's right.
Right? I mean, you still have ovaries. You still have
Yes.
the female reproductive system. You said that you had a child.
Yes, I've given birth. I no longer.
I mean, I don't think that's necessarily true at all. Because you change your anatomy when you're trans. Like, you'll have surgeries. You can get rid of the stuff that's in there if you don't want it. I mean, to me, that sounds like changing anatomy. People love to bring up, when they dig you up, they're going to see that you are female. I'm dead. And also, who is digging me up? It's not. Why would I be dug up? Me specifically. Out of everybody else in the cemetery, they're going to go to me. And then they're going to be like, this was a female and it says Samuel. That's crazy.
See, he's going to have different version of it than,
right.
And I think it's really important that you understand
and
we're all going to have
it's
different views.
anatomic, okay?
Yeah.
Because biologically, I have shifted, okay? Trans meaning going from one to the next.
Biologically and all these things, I know that there's importance for you guys, but meeting me or seeing me, you would never know. So why is it important?
Well, no, because just
I'm just
say
curious.
if I was a woman, just say if I was a woman and I wanted to date you, what are you going to tell me?
I would tell you that I'm trans. What do you
No,
mean?
no, I'm saying you can't tell me that you're a man.
I mean, I'm still a man.
No, but
I'm
you
a
got to tell
transgender
me.
man.
You got to tell me that you were born a woman. You have to.
I mean, I don't have to.
Well, because if I go down, if I see
Right.
in your pants,
Right.
I'm going to see something different, and that will be troubling to me
Right,
if I had an expectation.
But again, this.
Okay. Man, I hate these fucking theoreticals, man. Also, and to assume that he doesn't have surgery or anything like that, I think is absolutely obnoxious. This guy acts like you can't have surgery or hormones.
Now, I have a question for all of you. Do your penises make you men?
Yes, biologically.
Like, no,
part of what
that
makes
is,
me a man,
is that
yes.
what makes
Well, I
you men?
said being a man's ingrained within every part of your body. So our cells are.
Right,
yes, our
but
penis too.
if
someone
you
goes
had
to war,
if you had to look at the difference between us and between you, now would that difference be the lack of a penis?
If we were naked.
Okay.
I mean,
so
it
if
would
we're
be-
gonna minimize being a man to
don't
that particular,
If they said yes to that question, they would be owned so fucking bad. That's why I don't say yes to that question.
if we minimize it, because this is where we're going, is anatomy, right? Because that's where we've gotten.
Our basic
Okay.
biology, yeah.
So if we get there, so do your penises make you more men than us?
It's part of
It's
what
not
does.
making more or less. It's we're a biologically man. You're not a biological man.
It's not a spectrum,
It's
so
from-
it's not a question that we can answer, because you're saying on the spectrum, would this make us more of a man than you? But no, it's because we are a man and you guys aren't.
Well, we're different.
So
men.
we're not men.
We're
Is
different.
what you is exactly what you just said.
In my view, you guys are appropriating the gender and you are living as a man, but biologically you are not a man.
You're. No, bro. You're. Oh, man. Appropriating men? What kind of water are you drinking?
So to me, it's not, you can't say, okay, well, does that make us more of a man? That's not even a question to ask, because you're not a biological man. When it comes down to asking questions that make me start to change what the truth is and what the truth isn't, putting it on a spectrum when it's an objective truth, that's where I draw the line.
What's the biggest problem with what he said? It doesn't make you. It doesn't make what you feel any different. The biological truth is the truth, and why can't that be the truth? And you also say, but I feel like on the inside that I'm a man and I'm going to present that way.
See, this is what I don't understand about people when they talk about trans people. It's just like the depths they go to be so obsessed. Like, why are you so obsessed with the biological truth? Go do something else worth your time. Like, why are you so hyper-focused on me? That makes me feel important. That makes me feel like that's all you think about is me, is trans. Why is that what you're thinking about? There's like a million other things that you could think about. Why are you so focused on like me and what my biology is and if I change that or not?
Do you feel like it's something that has gone wrong at birth? Like, you're born and you say, well, genetics and evolution says
Right.
this. Why do I feel like this,
Yeah,
yet
I mean,
I have
I
this?
think questioning it was something that I always wondered, because sometimes when people say like, oh, like it was a choice, which I hear a lot on the other side all the time, like it was a choice. I was legit born this way. Like I could remember from, I think 4 or 5 years old where like I didn't feel like a girl, you know what I mean? And I can't tell you why that happened. It was just my path in this life. And it's something that I honored. And, you know, it was really hard for me to continue living, especially when puberty hit. You know, like time of month comes in, obviously anatomy changes, like, and that was the biggest thing for me where I knew that like, okay, I can't do this. It's like you're not in your own home.
Yeah, it's like, I feel like it's such a feeling that you can't even describe sometimes, because a lot of us have very early memories of how it felt to be trans and not understand what that is. And it's just like, I feel like it's just a feeling you can't even explain.
Children should be allowed to transition.
Well, I was gonna say, I find it very interesting that you and I are the only ones that stepped up, especially since we're younger. And
you should allow children to feel what they feel, because I felt the way that I felt for as long as I can remember, and it's something that I cannot deny.
Yeah.
You know, although my mother is supportive, when I was younger, I wasn't allowed to wear boys' clothes because that wasn't right. Now I know we're talking about transitioning. It doesn't always have to be hormones. It's like transitioning in society, so being able to dress more masculine. Yeah. I did when I was younger, but as I got into middle school, kids change, people are mean, so you know, I dressed how I would in society, so I dressed like a girl, whatever, but I think that children should be allowed to express themselves in whatever way makes them feel comfortable.
Yeah. Kids are struggling to be who they are, and there's more rates of suicide for trans individuals because they're like, there's literally being laws put in place to prevent them from being who they are, and that's not right. That's not right.
I agree. I don't think we should put children in boxes. I think they should, if they like what they like toy trucks, that's cool. They like toy Barbies, that's cool.
Okay, so I work with children. This is where I have like the biggest problem with the trans stuff, is with the children, because people, like I'm sure you guys would agree, you want to inject them with the hormones to stop their puberty, their normal puberty. They haven't even developed their prefrontal cortex yet, and you want to stop their natural puberty from occurring to affirm their gender, and then later on they regret it. I think that's not a good thing.
See, that's why this is a loaded question, because transition can mean many things for children. Now, I totally, as a transsexual person, disagree with giving children hormone blockers, medication, surgery, but what I do agree with is socially transitioning, which means because I did that, okay, and I did that in the 60s and 70s. My parents dressed me like Buck, I was a boy, you know, I didn't have any problems because I just lived, we used to call it a tomboy, right? So that was totally, and I went through puberty and I did all the things. I do not believe children can make those choices, and I do not believe it's okay and ethical for a parent to make those choices for a child.
When people are talking about children transitioning, what comes in my head is like a 5-year-old, right? And when a 5-year-old is going to transition because they feel whatever way they feel, there is only so much that you can do for a 5-year-old, and that is cutting hair, wearing different clothes, and having a different name. That's all you can do for a child to transition. There is nothing permanent about that. So they have many, many years to come where they're going to grow up and they're going to say to themselves, yeah, man, like this is going great. I feel great. I'm a trans boy and I feel great. Or things don't go that way and they're like, yeah, I don't really know what was going on, but I'm not a trans boy. So I'm just going to grow my hair back out. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to do anything permanent in those stages. So I don't understand why there's always such a fucking argument. My life would have been so much easier if I cut my hair, went by the name that I wanted to, and changed my clothes when I was younger, and then took puberty blockers, and then whatever comes next, hormones and all that stuff. That's what I think about when I see this question, is little me. I think it would be extremely hypocritical of me to say no to that, because I also transitioned when I was 16, which is very young still, and I started taking hormones at 17. And it is a scary thing. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's not a decision that needs to be thought through, because I definitely think it is. Hormones, they change so much about your body and about you and all that stuff. It's a life-changing thing, and it definitely should be taken very seriously, but this is why we go through the process of it. I don't know, that's a loaded question, and everybody's going to have a differing opinion on that, and I can't imagine how tough it is on a parent to understand a trans child and try to help them navigate through it I think that would be extremely hard.
But I do believe gender dysphoria exists in children. I had it, 100% it's there. But to give medication to a child is so unethical to me that you would actually, you're exactly what you said, you're stunting brain growth, you're stunting all of these things. They don't have enough research on it. So I'm in agreement with transitioning medically for children is not okay for me, but I do believe in a social space.
When you say
If we're talking about puberty blockers here, like, these aren't easy to get. I really don't think they are. I've done a little bit of research. I'm not going to pretend that I know everything about it, but I've done a fair share of research, and like, puberty blockers, they don't just give them out to you. Like, you have to have a history of feeling the way that you do to get put on puberty blockers, and even then you can stop a puberty blocker. Sure, everything that you put in your body is going to have some type of side effect. That's the risk that comes with doing things like this.
When you say a social transition, it's interesting to me because we can't control what happens in a social situation.
That's right. That's right.
So to me, and we talk about suicide rates among young trans people, this whole ideology is telling people to derive their value off of what somebody else is saying about them,
That's
or what
right.
somebody else affirms to them. So we say that, you know, society is the problem and we're not allowing people to be who they are, and that's why they're committing suicide. But maybe it has to do with the messaging that we're sending to these kids, that you derive your value from if somebody uses your correct pronoun, or you derive your value if this person accepts you for wearing a dress. Be who you are, but tell them to be empowered about it and not get that empowerment from somebody else.
I feel like that's really kind of inconsiderate to say that someone would take their life because what someone else says. To somebody, that is important. To somebody, I know have friends who their family does not use their correct pronouns and they've transitioned and they live in the same household.
I feel like that's a really hard thing to say, because there are instances where you can be purposely harassed for being trans. If somebody's sitting there beating you down, it's probably going to make you feel like shit most of the time. And especially, you know, younger trans people, that means a lot to them because you've just transitioned and you're now navigating life as Sam. And if people are pushing you down for it or mistaking you for the other gender, it's not gonna feel good. And I don't think their life revolves around other people's opinions, but when you hear shitty things enough about yourself, sometimes you start to believe them. So I don't really think that's fair to say, because people can push other people down very hard. You've got to be a strong person for people to not have the ability to do that.
This person struggles with depression and anxiety. Could you imagine living in an environment like that where you're no longer validated? That's coming from your own parents.
But if you base your validation off of other people, this is a hard truth, but if your sole validation
No, you definitely have to do it. Listen,
I
I could give a shit what everyone thinks about me. I do what I want. But for everyone, that's not the case, because everybody has different personalities.
Right, but that doesn't make it any. That doesn't mean that.
But it's
we
still.
should
But
be
what you're not
telling people to get
acknowledging. What you're not
validation from
acknowledging though
others.
is that in that environment, it is not supported.
I'm acknowledging that. I'm
Okay.
just saying that we're saying that for some reason they should look for that validation from somebody
When
else
you
rather
love
than find it
somebody and you have a
within.
family, you want them to
But
validate
you're
you.
focusing not on the individual. You're focusing on the people outside of that
Yeah, but
individual.
the individual.
I'm focusing on empowering that individual.
But part of being a
You're-
person is needing to be validated. You don't need to be validated ever in your life from your
No.
family or your friends.
I get my
Never.
validation from within, and then the.
Right,
There's
but
no way.
if we're talking about children, okay, if we're talking,
child.
okay, I was an 8-year-old when I found out that I wasn't biologically male, right? I was 8 when I found out that I wasn't the same as my brothers, okay? And so going through that process, I attempted suicide 4 times because my mother was like, well, you are a girl. When you're 8 and you're 12 and you don't have anyone else that is in your space, when you don't have anyone else that lives in the same house as you to tell you you're okay, where are you supposed to go? How are you supposed to garner your own self-validation if the people that are raising you don't validate who you are?
Especially if you're somebody who has depression or anxiety or something like that, and it makes those worse. This is where all the other shit comes into play. You're making my depression worse, you're making my anxiety worse. What do you think happens? You know what I'm saying? So outside factors are always going to have an impact on you as a person, especially when you're trans, especially when, like, all this stuff that I've been reading about trans people lately, and I really most of the time do not care about what people say about me or what they think about me or anything like that. But when you read it enough in the news and you read that these laws are being passed and all these other people who are talking about trans people, it's like you read that and you're like, why do these people hate me so much? What did I do to you that makes you so passionate about taking away my rights or calling me she or whatever it is, or harassing me in general? It's like, when you read those things, it doesn't fucking feel good.
As a father, you know, my duty is to raise my children the way I believe is right. And if my child somehow struggles with this, which is fine. We'll have that conversation. But I'm going to let it play out the way I believe it should be played out. And at 18 years old, you can do whatever you want to do. If you don't want to wear dresses, that's fine. I mean, just wearing if you want to dress like a boy, don't make you want to be a boy. Don't mean you have to be a boy. My mom was a tomboy, and my mom had me and my brother, and she's a woman, and she lives like that. But, you may want to dress a little different. Maybe a boy want to do cheerleading or something like that. Right. But that don't mean you need to transition to something else. So
Is this the guy who said that women cry on the floor? Who's cheerleading and then deciding to transition? I joined cheerleading, guess I'm going to transition. This is the guy, right?
I want that to play out until my child is old enough to make that decision on their own. Also, you have to teach your children to have balance, because if you just want mommy and daddy to acquiesce to everything you want, that's not reality. You have to understand that mom and dad may not see me this way. They love me. Right. I see myself this way, and I disagree with how they speak to me or but I love them as well. I love, like my son, if he said that he was, and I'm a Christian and I don't believe in homosexuality, I don't. I respect anybody that feel that way. I never, protest you at all. If my son came to me, it would be a struggle for me to want to go to his wedding. I'm just going to be honest.
Didn't I fucking say he's the type of guy to say that? Yeah, I read you like a book, like your Bible.
But I think that my son should understand this is the way my dad feel. I love him. This is the way I feel, and we have mutual love. And that don't mean I hate you. That just mean we disagree. And I wish that same sentiment would be, and I think it's the same on this panel. Like, there's no hate in any of this. Right. I love every single person on this side, and we may think of things differently, but we love each other. It can't be one-sided.
Why would you ever be so against something that you wouldn't go to your child's wedding because you are so fucking stubborn about it and you're such a big baby about it? Don't have kids and expect them to be the way that you want them to be. They're their own person. I think it's so ridiculous when people think that they can just have kids and force them to be a specific way. They're not you. They're going to go through life differently. And if they happen to be gay or they happen to be trans like that, you should love them unconditionally. That is your kid. And you're going to throw a fit because your kid likes men? That shit disgusts me. It's like, I really don't understand how that impacts your life so much that you have to shun it. That is so weird.
I grew up with a positive father figure.
You all had dads? Mine ran away.
This is good.
I think for me it's surprising, because I would believe that a woman or a person who's born as a woman who now identifies as a man didn't have a positive role model as a man, and therefore they felt somewhat insecure as a woman, which makes them, feel a certain way and want to be a certain different person. Maybe they want to be the man that their father never was, or whatever the case may be. And so it was very interesting. I mean, I'm being honest, it was interesting to see pretty much a majority of you guys come forward.
I fucking love this because they always think like this guy does. And maybe we actually are our own person and we don't really care to become our dads or fill that void. That's not why I'm trans at all. Maybe think about it this way. People are people and we transition for ourselves, not because we didn't have a dad.
That's so great. I think that's really important that you say that, because I do think a lot of people probably feel that way about guys like me, right? That our fathers we didn't have the right upbringing or what. My father was amazing. I grew up really like a little boy. I always felt like a little boy. My parents actually raised me, and I'm 59 years old, so that was in the 60s and the 70s when we didn't even talk about this kind of stuff. But my parents actually felt it from me. So I think that that's a misconception that people think about people like us.
Any good father pushes their child to feel self-love and to feel like they can be who they want, do what they want, and have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? Like our founding fathers. And so it's fatherlessness, or having a missing dad, is a pandemic in its own, and it's one that obviously I'm sure Brandon can attest to. It's so critical to have a father in the house, because kids get lost when they don't have one, and having a father that's loving and strong and someone you can rely on is the reason why we're all comfortable with who we are.
I never understood this argument. I think I brought this up before on my channel, but I was raised by a single mother. She gave me twice as much love. And I didn't need a father figure for anything. You know, a mom can do those things too. She gave me everything that I needed. She was there for me when I was lost. Like, I don't really know what else I really need from a parent when she gives me twice the love.
I had several different father figures like in my life. So it wasn't, you know, I had a dad, but then I had my grandfather and I had my uncle. You know, it takes a village to raise a child, right? But all of those different perspectives raised me as a well-rounded human. Like, you know, if we take the masculinity out of it, just as a human, I got to see different perspectives. And so now as a father that has given birth to a child, and that child being a male, right, I'm able to raise him with those same ideals that I'm able to identify because of the father figures that I had.
I didn't have my father growing up. He was not present in my life at all. So it showed me that some men can step up, like my grandfather and my stepfather, who have taken me in and showed me how to take care of myself, how to be, you know, strong and dependable. And all I've been able to do is give more love to all people that I interact with.
Right.
So it was really important for me to have those figures.
I think this is a really important thing to show people that are watching this, because a lot of times I feel like we can blame any issues in society or anything that arises on the generation that came before us. So any issues that arise in our society, it's like, there's not always a reason why it's happening. We just need to address the issue and solve it.
Yeah, so I'm going to end that clip here. And those are all the points that I wanted to share with you. This was a very interesting video, actually. Yeah, this was super interesting to me because I feel like these discussions, especially when they are around trans topics, there's always the people with the misinformation and then the trans people or people with correct information. And they're just going back and forth. And you're never going to get anywhere with it because these people who have misinformation or no basic understanding of transgender always pull something out of their ass, and I feel like sometimes they just refuse to learn or look things up, and that's just how we constantly get into these conversations. So essentially this conversation is just going to happen over and over and over again until the people with the misinformation or the uneducated opinion that they have go and actually do some research, because it is a very, very simple thing. So yeah, with all that being said, I'm going to go now, and I will see all of you next week with a new video.